He had a record deal with one of the biggest labels in the world, a song with 2 million streams, and a collaboration with a globally recognized artist, and then he disappeared, quietly picking up a job selling life insurance while his music career sat frozen in place. That man is Philmon Lee, a singer-songwriter from LaGrange, Georgia, who signed with Epic Records at 19 years old, watched the pandemic erase everything he had built, and then spent 6 years waiting for a door to open again. By the time you finish this video, you'll understand exactly why the American Idol stage in 2026 wasn't his beginning, it was his comeback. LaGrange, Georgia sits about 60 miles southwest of Atlanta. It's a factory town, working hands, long shifts, and a community that doesn't put much stock in spectacle. The kind of place where you learn the value of hard work before you learn anything else, and where dreaming too loudly can feel out of step with everything around you. Philmon Lee grew up inside all of that, and he grew up surrounded by music anyway. His father was a musician, not a hobbyist, not someone who strummed on weekends. Philmon Sr. toured with a gospel group called the Georgia Melody Boys and a rock band called the Hired Guns. Young Philmon didn't just hear music in the house, he traveled with it. He sat in the back of vehicles on the road with his dad, watched him perform in front of crowds, and absorbed what it actually meant to give yourself over to a song. He learned piano, guitar, and drums as a kid, not from a curriculum, from exposure. From watching and listening and then doing it himself, the way people who grow up in musical households tend to learn by osmosis rather than instruction. His mother, Christy Terry, later said the family knew he could sing, but they didn't fully grasp what his voice was capable of until he was around 12 years old. That's when the voice shifted from charming to something else entirely, something that made people stop. He went through LaGrange High School carrying that voice with him. The town would later hold watch parties for him at that same school. But in those years, nobody outside of his family and his community had any idea what was coming. He enrolled at Auburn University at Montgomery in Alabama, chasing the idea of a conventional future that lasted less than 2 years. And if you think that dropout story ends where most dropout stories end, stay with me because this next part is why the whole story matters. Most people who walk away from college to chase a music career end up with a cautionary tale. Philmon Lee ended up with a major label deal. He left Auburn University at Montgomery while still a teenager. By his own account, it wasn't a dramatic moment, it was a quiet reckoning. He said he kept asking himself what he was really doing there, when the only thing he actually wanted was music. Eventually, I was just like, I'd rather do music, he said. When I dropped out, I was like, I've got to take it serious now. He moved to Atlanta. The city's music infrastructure gave him access he wouldn't have had in LaGrange. Studios, producers, industry people who knew how things worked. He got his foot inside a smaller label called Key Playaz Music Group. It wasn't the break he needed, but it kept him working. He kept recording, kept trying to get the right people to listen. Then a clip of him singing started moving. Not through a big campaign, not through industry machinery. Someone filmed him, and the footage reached the right person. Tyshawn Johnson, known in the industry as Fly Ty, an executive at Against the Grain Entertainment, who also worked as a talent scout for Sony Music. Fly Ty signed him. They started recording. And then one day, Fly Ty told him Epic Records had called. Epic flew Philmon Lee out to California. He walked into a room and met Sylvia Rohn, the CEO of Epic Records, one of the most powerful figures in the music industry. He signed a deal at approximately 19 or 20 years old. A kid from a factory town in West Georgia, who had dropped out of college barely 2 years earlier, was now on the same label as Michael Jackson's catalog, Pearl Jam, and Travis Scott. He described the feeling of getting there as being like a movie, faster than he had imagined, more real than he had let himself believe it could be. But here's the part that changes everything about what you just heard. The deal was real, the momentum was real, and for a short while, everything pointed in one direction. His first releases landed in 2020. 2 debut singles, Memories and Sunflower I Refuse to Die, came out under Epic Records. Memories immediately placed on Spotify's New Music Friday playlist, a curatorial slot that labels spend years trying to access. Within weeks, it had crossed 78,000 streams. For a debut single from an unsigned Yesterday artist, that was traction. Music industry press noticed. American Songwriter ran a feature. Paste magazine profiled him. One outlet called him a once-in-a-lifetime vocalist. Another said to move over Sam Smith. The coverage was the kind that creates heat, the kind that makes people in the industry look twice. He released his first EP, titled 706, in 2021. A name taken from the area code of his home region of Georgia. Autobiographical, rooted, the same soul blues rock blend that had caught Fly Tie's attention in the first place. Collaborations followed. He recorded No Saving Me with violinist Lindsey Sterling, a name with over 13 million YouTube subscribers and a global fan base of her own. That song climbed to over 2 million streams on Spotify. In 2023, he released Baby Don't Cry, featuring Young Thug, which added more than 800,000 streams to his catalog. By 2024, he had a second EP out, titled Home Drinker. From the outside, that looked like a career building steadily. From the inside, it had already stalled out, badly. The problem wasn't his voice, and it wasn't his output. The problem was timing, specifically, the worst possible timing in modern music industry history. Most people who know this story stop here. But the real story starts right now. When Philmon Lee talked about the pandemic during his American Idol audition in 2026, he wasn't being dramatic. He was describing a sequence of events that quietly ended the version of his career that was supposed to happen. "I was able to record a lot," he told the judges. "It looked like it was going to be pretty promising. And then COVID hit. It just kind of plateaued, and I got shelved." That word, shelved, carries a specific meaning in the music industry. It doesn't mean dropped. It means your album or your project gets put on hold indefinitely. Funding is paused, promotional cycles are canceled, and the machine that was supposed to push your name to a wider audience simply goes quiet. You're still signed, you're just not moving. And while you're not moving, you're not earning. The pandemic didn't just close venues and cancel tours. It forced major labels to consolidate their priorities, redirect budgets, and focus on established artists who already had proven revenue streams. Newer artists, even signed ones, got deprioritized. Some got dropped. Others, like Philmon, got frozen. He was 20 years old, in a label deal, with his name in the music press and no income. He picked up selling life insurance. That detail tends to surprise people when they first hear it. But for someone who grew up in a blue-collar community, it makes complete sense. You work. You don't sit around waiting for circumstances to change. You find a way to keep the lights on while you figure out your next move. The blue-collar ethic his hometown gave him didn't disappear when the record deal arrived. It's what kept him standing when the deal stopped producing results. He kept making music. He posted covers on TikTok. A video of him singing Creedence Clearwater Revival's "Have You Ever Seen the Rain" quietly racked up 1.5 million views. He built more than 100,000 followers on that platform without a major promotional push behind him. He wasn't gone. He was just out of sight. And that's when the decision was made, the one nobody around him saw coming. Philmon Lee drove to Nashville with his family to audition for American Idol Season 24. He was 25 years old. He had a history that the average contestant doesn't arrive with: 2 EPs, millions of combined streams, a major label deal, years of professional recording experience. But none of that was visible in the room. What was visible was a man who looked nervous and tried not to show it. He stood in front of judges Lionel Richie, Carrie Underwood, and Luke Bryan. He sang "When a Man Loves a Woman," the version made famous by Michael Bolton. The vocal performance he delivered wasn't the controlled technical exercise of someone running through a rehearsed audition piece. It was the full version of what he had spent his entire life building toward. Lionel Richie told him he had walked in and knocked the judges right out. Luke Bryan, who is himself from Georgia, told him he looked born to sing. Not trained, not polished, not talented. Born to it. Bryan later said the performance made him proud. Carrie Underwood and Bryan both noticed one thing: his hands stayed in his pockets. Stage presence, the physical expression of the voice, was the one part of the performance that hadn't fully unlocked yet. He got his golden ticket. At Hollywood Week, he came back with more movement and more intention, covering "Lose Control" by Teddy Swims. The judges placed him in the Golden Room. He advanced to the top 30, then through the Ohana round in Hawaii, where he dedicated his performance of Cotaline's "All I Want" to his grandmother, and into the live shows. Back in LaGrange, his high school held a watch party. His mother and sister flew out to Hollywood. Break and Run Cafe became the regular gathering point for his community week after week. He sold out the Royal Theater in downtown LaGrange. Not a small room, a full-capacity homecoming for a hometown that never stopped believing he would make it. Here's what the comments kept asking, and here's the answer they never got, until now. The further Philmon went in the competition, the clearer it became that his story wasn't just a talent narrative, it was a resilience one. Each week brought a different challenge. The show's format pushed contestants through themed weeks, surprise song choices, and public voting. In the top 12 week, each judge anonymously selected a song for each contestant. Philmon received Hard to Handle by the Black Crowes, a song that required grit and swagger and the kind of raw vocal power that doesn't come from training alone. He delivered it. He made the top 11. His mother described the experience from Hollywood as overwhelming, exciting, and very stressful in the same breath. She told local media they couldn't plan even a day ahead. Every performance could have been the last. Every week a potential goodbye. Philmon dealt with the nerves publicly too. Judges Keke Palmer and Brad Paisley both encouraged him to work with his nerves rather than against them, pushing him toward a more fluid, natural stage presence. The elimination came on the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame theme night in mid-April 2026. LaGrange had packed the Break and Run Cafe again, hoping to see him advance to the top 9. He didn't make it through. His reaction, captured publicly afterward, was measured and genuine. "My first emotion," he said, "I guess I would say surprise, but grateful." He described the entire run as a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, said he had performed on a national and global stage in front of the industry's biggest names, and acknowledged that even the winner has to go home eventually. He noted that his hometown had been there for him in a way that went beyond passive support. People were defending him online, creating posts, organizing votes, keeping his name in circulation. Every morning in Los Angeles, he woke up and checked his phone and found his community actively fighting for him. "Not many people can say they made the top 11, he said. And after everything that came before, the deal, the pandemic, the insurance job, the 6 years of quiet, making the top 11 on the biggest singing competition platform in American television is not a consolation prize. And if you think that was surprising, stay with me, because this next part is why the whole story matters." Here's something most of the American Idol coverage left out entirely. When Philmon Lee walked into that audition in Nashville in early 2026, he was not a first-time hopeful with raw talent and a dream. He was a professional artist with an active record deal, a released discography, and industry relationships built over 6 years. He was working within the system, selling insurance to stay solvent, while maintaining his catalog and his social media presence and his connection to music. The 2 million streams on No Saving Me with Lindsey Stirling didn't vanish when the pandemic hit. They were there, sitting on Spotify, while he drove to appointments and sold policies. The 1.5 million views on his TikTok cover weren't a fluke. They were proof that the audience existed, and that when people heard him without the label machinery behind him, they responded. His 2024 EP, Home Drinker, came out roughly 2 years before his Idol audition. He was still creating, still releasing, still building. The insurance job wasn't a surrender. It was the bridge between one chapter and whatever came next. What American Idol did for Philmon Lee wasn't discover him. It amplified him. It put a stage under someone who had been performing quietly for years and gave an audience the chance to hear what the industry had already verified back in 2020. There's also the matter of his father. Philmon Sr. wasn't just a source of musical inspiration. He was a living example of what it looked like to give yourself to music and keep going. A man who toured in a gospel group and a rock band from a small Georgia town, who watched his son follow a version of the same path. The nights Philmon cried because he wasn't singing, because he thought the chance had passed, his father and his family were there for every one of them. That background didn't make the story more sentimental. It made the resilience structural. He wasn't improvising. He was doing what his family had taught him. You keep going. One phone call, one conversation, that's all it took to change the direction of everything. After the elimination, Philmon Lee came home. He performed a free concert at Wild Leap in LaGrange in late April 2026. Doors opened at 6 in the evening. Nick Mayfield opened. Philmon took the stage at 8. He described the event simply. "This concert is really just a way for me to say, hey, thank you." The social media presence he's been building continues to grow. He's active on Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook under the handle @Philmon Lee. The Idol exposure added reach that 6 years of independent releases couldn't have purchased. He still has his Epic Records deal. He still has his discography. He has 2 million streams on a single song, a 2024 EP, and now millions of American households who watched him work his way to the top 11 of a nationally broadcast competition. The insurance job was never the story. It was the footnote that made the story human. What comes next for Philmon Lee is unwritten, but the infrastructure is there. The voice is there. The audience, which has been building since 2020 in fragments and now exists as a cohesive following, is there. He told his community in LaGrange he would love to come back and perform again, not as a charity gesture, but as a genuine intention. The judges saw what his hometown already knew. The industry had already confirmed it years before the audition, and now the rest of the country has seen it too. The only question left is what Philmon Lee does with the door that just opened. The pandemic didn't just pause concerts. For Philmon Lee, it paused an entire career that had been years in the making and turned a signed Epic Records artist into an insurance agent from Georgia. Watch what he does from here. He has the label relationship, the catalog, the audience, and now the national profile. The next single, the next tour, the next chapter, whatever form it takes, is going to come from someone who has already proven he can survive the version of the music industry that breaks most people. Would you have done what Philmon Lee did? Held on to music for 6 years through a pandemic, a day job, and no guarantee it would ever work? Or would you have walked away and called it a good try? Let me know in the comments below.